today, guys, what we're going to be focusing on is we're going to be going through some of the release notes for 2023.2. The reason we thought this would be helpful is because, as everyone here knows, when NetSuite does these upgrades, they spit out a very large chunk of PDF of what's going to be happening on the new release. So that is both good and bad in that it gives us some ability to understand what's happening, but a lot of times it lacks context in terms of the analysis, what's going on, how's it going to impact me. So one of the things that we do is we do analysis of several of our clients, and we can help provide you guys with some guidance on what is happening with these new releases to make sure that you guys have the right context, the right capability of learning what it is. So for today, we've picked out, I don't know, how many did we do, Jen? Like 20, 25
Yeah.
of the most important analytics pieces from this specific new release. So we're going to try to go through, give you guys, hey, this is why we think these are important. Here's a little bit of our analysis behind it. So Olivia, if you want to move to the next slide. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about new release. Everyone should, when they log into NetSuite and a new release is coming up, you should get a new release portlet that's got a couple of different options on it. It's going to show you, access to your release preview environment. It's going to have some training videos. It's going to show you the notes. What we recommend is making sure to leverage that release preview environment. So even if you just, are using the basics in NetSuite, accounting, order management, right? It's beneficial to kick off that release preview environment and go test a couple of things that you guys do on a day-to-day basis. Make sure nothing's broken. Now, if you're a more heavily integrated customer where you're doing a lot of different things and you've got lots of scripting and APIs and automation, it's definitely more important to lean into the new release and test some of those things. Being that we're all, like, you guys are all clients of ours and have contracts, like, this is absolutely something that we can help you with to make sure that everything is working. We can also build you guys training plans. So, like, even if you don't want us to do the testing, we can say, hey, based on our analysis, these are these 5 areas for you guys to go test. Go make sure these scripts are all working. The biggest piece of new releases where we do see failure points are scripts and integrations, right? NetSuite makes a minor API tweak for a Suite app, and then, we go from there. Last thing I wanted to touch base on here is the fact that you actually can request to be moved later in the queue as long as you're not at the end of the queue. So when you go in, there is Jen, what's the best way to explain this, right? The customer scheduled maintenance is available if you've already been moved to the Oracle cloud infrastructure. So basically that means, like, if you're on a enterprise or premium tier or ultimate tier, then you do have the capability to say, hey, please move my release date further back. If you're on a standard tier, you don't quite have that option yet. If you don't know if you're on a premium or standard tier, reach out to Ali or myself. We can absolutely, or reach out to Ali or your consultant, and we can help figure out what tier you're on. If you have the ability to do that, sort of opt in. Now, the one thing I will say is that if you opt for a later one, right, you really still are coming up, like, you definitely come up to a hard limit. We can't, it's not like other systems where you can just delay indefinitely. NetSuite has 4 or 5 phases of the release. They've got, like, the the beta, the early adopter, etc., moving on down the pathway. So if you're in one of the early stages, you can move later, but if you're in a later stage, there's only so much later you can move to. So
Yeah, and essentially, I think, Randall, to your point, if you have questions, please reach out. But the other thing you can is reach out and do a support ticket and ask to be moved to an additional or a later tier. The pros and cons on both sides, there's usually three, right? Three tiers and three different release dates throughout the process. Randall, do you mind if I share my screen real quick and just show them
Go
that
for it.
release?
I didn't want to take the PowerPoint away from Olivia. So
Sorry,
go
Olivia,
for
I'm
it.
going to from you if that's okay. But I need to stop sharing real quick. Awesome. Okay, can you guys see my NetSuite screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So everybody should have the ability to add a new release portlet to your dashboard within your environment. To do that, you're going to hover over Personalize, and you're going to have a dashlet called New Release. It's grayed out on mine because mine's already on there, but all you're going to do is click that once and it's going to appear down below. From this new release dashboard, you're going to see your upcoming scheduled date. So the phase that you're going to be in, phase 3 in this case, that's the last one. So in this case, I can't request to move back anymore. As we all know, with those 2 releases that NetSuite does, or the release twice a year that they do, you don't have the option to opt in or out. So what they've done instead to give us all that comfort before these releases is they've now let us go, okay, if I'm in phase 1 or 2, I want to push back maybe to phase 3. So go ahead and request that. Get in touch with us if you need to, and we'll guide you through that process. The other things that you have in here are your release preview. For any of those who've gone in before and activated a new sandbox refresh, it's a very similar process for your release preview. So I know my release preview is available. I can go in and under setup company, I don't have the access in this environment, but I could go under setup company and go down to my release preview. That should be an option in my setup menu. From there, I'm going to click on activate, and it's going to take a clip of production at that moment and put it in my release preview. The nice thing about this is you now have a copy of your environment for free, limited time, of course, so don't get crazy and do any kind of like customizations in there. But now you can go through and test all of your customizations that you've had done in the past. If you have scripting, test on those things that you might have concerns about with those new upgrades. There's also some quite helpful contact information here. Again, contact your account manager. I can reach out and ask directly from this link if I can be pushed back another tier if I'm in phase 1 or 2. Training resources. We have a lot of training resources available in here. We've got our release preview guide, which is going to take you step by step through how to activate that. Blogs, those release notes, which are what Randall was referring to earlier, that really long list of notes, but it is helpful to have one place for all of it. And again, it's going to put some of those things that you've got that they consider, big components of the new release. They're going to come in here and show a couple of those for you and give you some learn more. So any questions from anyone on the release preview, activating that, and what to test? Awesome. All right, Olivia, I'm going to stop sharing and hand this back to you if that's okay.
For sure. And we'll leave time at the end for questions. And if you have a question, you can just drop it in the chat, everybody.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, guys, so let's get into some of the accounting stuff. What we wanted to do is rather than show you guys the new release notes and sort of read it to you, we just wanted to put this on the screen and very much talk to you about a couple of the pieces in each of these sections that are going to be important. So, for accounting, we've picked a couple here to go through. We're going to talk about the kit package enhancements, the account reconciliation, new suite app, and then some of the fixed assets management enhancements. So for kits and packages, right, it talks about prospective merge, and this is something for revenue arrangements. So if you guys aren't using advanced RevRec, or you're not using revenue management or revenue arrangements, then this probably doesn't apply to you. But what's been happening historically is that sometimes when you blow out a kit, and you're trying to do the prospective merge for revenue recognition assignments, NetSuite wasn't calculating each of the lines correctly. So they've made some updates and they've fixed that on kit package items. But again, only something you need to worry about if you're using RevRec plans and revenue arrangements. All right. The account reconciliation, this is actually something that's going to be pretty cool. So it's a new Oracle style suite app that really should help with account reconciliation and reconciliation syncing. So this is definitely something that if you find yourself spending too much time doing account reconciliations, or there's something more manual in that process that you're struggling with, feel free, look into this app. There's a lot of links there. It's certainly something that we can help you look into. It's new, so it's a pre-existing Oracle application, but it's new to NetSuite and available, coming to this release. So it may not be fully out there yet. It may not have everything you'd expect it to, but coming from Oracle Fusion Cloud, it's definitely built on the same infrastructure that NetSuite uses. So expect this to be a helpful tool, and maybe there might be a little bit of growing pain in there. So it's certainly something to, if you're interested in it, take a look and test it, see if it works for you. The last thing in accounting is some of the fixed assets enhancements. The main thing in the fixed assets that I wanted to talk about is now you can do a lot of the asset splits on depreciated assets via CSV. So previously you could not manage this through CSV, and now it's available through an import process. So if you have very large lists of assets, this is going to be very helpful to you. The other new piece for fixed assets is some advanced lease accounting. As we've seen NetSuite grow over the last couple of releases, supporting lease management with the fixed assets suite app, you've seen on each of these releases sort of a little bit here, a little bit there. So if you're using leases, take a look, because again, there is some very nitty-gritty stuff that they're releasing periodically, such as revenue, residual value modification, and quarterly and semi-annually rental frequencies are now supported. So for those of you who are using leases or looking to use leases, definitely something to pay attention to in this release and other releases as we keep going. So that was the brief, just the accounting portions. So I'm going to pause for a second. If anyone has any questions on the accounting portion, feel free to throw them into the chat. We'll circle back to answer them, but I want to give people a minute to, as we go through each of these sections and it's fresh in your head, add questions if necessary. All right. Hopefully that gave everyone just enough time to start jotting things down. The next thing that we're going to talk about is NetSuite account setup and maintenance. This is one that I really wanted to focus on today. The reason I wanted to focus on today is because the new release notes in this area on first glance seem really great. The reason that they seem really great is because it just says you can use line item IDs in system notes for regular lines and for transaction ID fields. And at first, when we're looking at this, it's, oh, great, we have line level IDs that we can reference in system notes to see where errors are, to run reports, to add to save searches. But this is a little misleading. So basically what this means is that in NetSuite's analytics warehouse, their big analytics warehouse and NetSuite Suite Analytics, there's a function called nQuery. And this is a very advanced, almost scripting level reference capability in these analytics warehouses, as well as in scripting. You can run these things called nQueries. The system IDs and the transaction field IDs for this, it's only available in those through those two ways: the analytics warehouses and workbooks and scripting. So this is not something that in the user interface is going to add us any actual functionality to be able to search, to report, and to sort of do some of the things that a lot of people have been looking for with line level IDs for quite some time. So while this is a very beneficial feature for those of us using more advanced analytics capabilities or trying to reference scripted lines on system notes for query capability, it's not going to be valuable to users using this, trying to use this in the user interface. It's not going to be accessible. So, all right, Olivia, let's move on to authentication. Great. So for authentication, there's three pieces we're going to be talking about. Two of them that we're going to be talking about. Both of them are in the same vein. Okay, both of them are relating to two-factor authentication or single sign-on. NetSuite is deprecating, moving into next year, how that it manages single sign-on and outbound single sign-on, as well as two-factor authentication. So the short version is that NetSuite is pretty much doing away with a lot of their SSO and 2FA that they've been doing internally and pushing this more onto third-party applications. So where this is actually very impactful is if you are still leveraging the NetSuite single sign-on or NetSuite two-factor authentication, this is where you need to start taking a look at, okay, if I want to maintain this functionality, I need to start looking at other options for single sign-on, whether through Microsoft Access, I believe it is, or another tool such as Okta, or just a Microsoft Authenticator app on your phone. So I know Microsoft has one. I think Google has one. These are things that you're going to want to, again, start looking into. The main thing with the two-factor is that you can still set up two-factor, but it's going to require you to set up either an email address or an authenticator app to get your two-factor code. So while NetSuite is still allowing for two-factor authentication, it's not just going to text you or call you anymore. So I know on some of my NetSuite accounts, I have it set up when I go to log in. Oh, you need two-factor. We texted a number to the last four digits of a phone number that you no longer use, right? So that's always painful for me, especially for account recovery standpoints. For a lot of individuals, this is not as much of a problem because you don't have multiple accounts, you don't have multiple phone numbers. But if you're using it on your single phone number now, that's going to be going away. So again, we're recommending starting to move to a process leveraging an authenticator application or leveraging single sign-on in order to adjust to this moving forward in 2024.1. So this is actually going away in March of next year. So as this comes up, we'll be talking about this again in our 2024.1 release preview webinar, sort of like we're doing today. But we wanted to give everyone, they put it in the release notes, a heads up because sometimes it can take time to identify who is related to this process. All administrators of NetSuite are required to use 2FA now. So if you are a NetSuite administrator, this is something you need to look at. And then sort of tailoring into this on the authentication side, NetSuite outbound single sign-on where you log into NetSuite and it says, okay, great. It logs you into other applications via the standard NetSuite, pre-built SSO tool. That's going away. So if you're wanting to log into NetSuite and have it log into other applications, you're going to have to do some, pretty advanced scripting with an SSO tool and plug that into NetSuite. What we've been seeing is that, again, using Microsoft Access or Okta, people are doing more of an inbound push to NetSuite where you log in somewhere else and then that counts into NetSuite. So again, this is a little bit more technical. If you have a team that manages your system security, such as single sign-on, two-factor, definitely something to get in front of them and start thinking about. Or again, you can come to us and say, hey, take a look at my account. This is what we're doing. What can you recommend? How can you help us? So again, Jen, let's just pause for 30 seconds. I know I sort of delivered a lot of information there on the authentication. So everyone, if you want to take a minute, start typing up questions for that. Give it about 30 seconds, then I'm going to hand it off to Jen for the next bit on inventory and order management.
Okay. Olivia, we can go ahead and flip to the next slide, pretty please. All right, guys, some good stuff coming up with inventory management. I'm going to try to call out when this is specific to certain functionality, of course. So the first thing I wanted to call out is something overall for everybody using inventory. Right now on your item records, there's a field that's in the header level called minimum order quantity. And that is applicable overall for all of your locations. So with 2023.2 coming up, we now have a new lot sizing option under your specific locations. This is at the bottom of your item record, purchasing and inventory tab in your location subtab. And in there, it's now got a field for minimum order quantity specific to each location. So what this does is when you're filling that out, it's going to obviously adjust up your recommended orders on your planned orders pages or your order items to increase those amounts based on your minimum order quantity needed. So if you've got a minimum order quantity of 10, but you only actually need 2, it's going to suggest that 10, knowing that that's your minimum order quantity. So very cool because now it's location specific, where before it was overall and you couldn't designate different minimum order quantities for each location. Warehouse management enhancements. We do have some new wave criteria pages the wave criteria pages do have new and edit options. So you can customize those wave selections. And you also have additional pick task columns available in there. So anybody who is using the WMS, something to take a look at. The other things that you can now do in the WMS with the new version is you can search by manufacturing part number. So that should be a help to anybody who maybe knows those MPNs or if something's coming in through an MPN. You also have the ability to do pick reversals. So you can now reverse a pick through the WMS system and put that back into inventory if needed. So if something's been overpicked, you can go ahead and reverse that for your work orders. Okay, by the way, with that, you can also choose the bin you're reversing that into. Quality management, anyone who's using quality management, there is a new addition to their Suite app, which is now allowing you to use transfer orders to generate a certificate of analysis for your item fulfillments. So if you're using quality management and you do need a certificate of analysis, you'll have the capabilities now within the quality management module. Supply chain management mobile enhancements. Anyone using supply chain management, this is going to now, it's pretty basic. It's going to allow you to switch roles within the app. So just something to note there. And then item 360, for those of you using item 360, you now have that available on your item record as well. And you do have a refresh icon that's added there. I'm going to pause for just a moment on the inventory management. And I think, Olivia, if I had any of those slides, just because it kind of all tied together, we can go straight into the manufacturing slide next. So I'll give you guys a moment to put in any of those questions before we start talking about manufacturing. And have more coffee. Okay, manufacturing mobile, this is probably my favorite of all of the new functionalities. If you're using the manufacturing mobile Suite app, you can now actually report scrap. Well, once you take the upgrade, you can report scrap through your device. So this is huge for anyone who's using this because if you know back in before this release, you literally had to go back into NetSuite and report scrap on the work order build itself or the assembly build when using WIP. This is going to really help companies to report scrap on the fly in your warehouse in the moment that it's happening. So it'll stop you from forgetting about it later, right? And you will just need to define those scrap accounts, make sure those are defined, and Manufacturing Mobile will allow you to do that. There's also now a costed bill of materials suite app available. So with this suite app, you're going to be able to view the comprehensive breakdown of your bill of materials, your assembly item, and any operations and cost types within that. If you are trying to get a better view into your cost in your manufacturing process, this suite app will definitely help you. So anyone who's using manufacturing who might be struggling with the view into your cost or wants more details and more ability to report on that better, please look into the costed bill of materials suite app. There's also some new functionality with work instructions in Traveler suite apps. So this is really going to allow you to break out your work instructions and really tailor those Traveler documents as well, if you want to look into that. So again, this is very specific to anybody who does need work instructions. Plenty of companies use manufacturing without that, but if you do, and it's a big part of your business, go ahead and peek at those suite apps. And for anybody who hasn't seen, there is a suite app button for admins in your environment where you can go and take a look at any suite apps available on the market. Randall, remind me if you know off the top of your head, is that just on the menu bar where you find the suite apps, or do you know of the menu path?
Yes, I believe it's just on the bar.
Perfect. Yeah, and you can go in there, guys, and keyword any of these. So again, we've been talking about the costed bill of materials suite app, the work instructions and traveler suite app. We talked about the quality management. So any of these, if you go in and take a peek and keyword those, you're going to see in the suite apps a nice rundown of what they do and what they can help you with, and then decide on if you want to go ahead and install that. Always do recommend installing anything like that in your sandbox, of course. For those of you who worked with Randall or I know you've heard this a lot, always in sandbox first, always test that out. Make sure it's what you were thinking and what you want. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about CPQ. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of CPQ, so I'm going to give you a kind of a rundown of what it does. This is a newer functionality, not brand new, a newer functionality. And so they've done a lot of enhancements to it. But because not everybody's heard of this yet, I would rather spend this time, instead of telling you the enhancements, a little bit about it. This is a configure price quote functionality that NetSuite has introduced, and it really does allow you to configure manufactured items. So sheds are one that we've been working with recently. If somebody goes and wants to buy a shed and they've got a couple different size options, they can go ahead and select the overall model of the shed. But within that, how many windows are going to fit in that shed based on the size of the shed? What size doors can you have? What colors do you want? Are any of these additional costs? CPQ allows you to do this within NetSuite. And it also does have integrations into website platforms. So it's a really cool functionality. If it does appeal to any of you, please reach out to us, let us know. And the big thing about the new release is that they're just making it better as they go. So that because it was released, I believe, around a year ago. Is that, if Randall, correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yes, it was announced at Sweet World, and I think it's officially been out for about 3 to 6 months.
So with that, they're going to continue. You're going to continue to see CPQ updates within any of the new releases. This is what NetSuite does. They release something and then they just make it better and better with all those updates. So if you do have questions on CPQ, go ahead and pop them in the chat now. And again, just follow up with us if you guys have any questions one-on-one and want to discuss anything. And then finally, anyone using Suite Billing, this is NetSuite's order management. Suite Billing has a lot of updates this round. It's allowing you to do commit plus overages now. It's giving you things like make copy options on a lot of your records for suite billing. So little fun enhancements that when you go in and you go into your release preview, which I know you all will, go into your suite billing screens and check out the new functionality. You're just going to see some more user-friendly buttons in there and options for actions that should make things a little bit easier for you going forward. You can also customize your pricing tab now for suite billing, allowing you to edit those layouts and what's showing and what's not. So again, more of like pretty stuff and easier to function kind of stuff with suite billing. And that's all I have for order management. So usually we see a bit more of the updates when it comes to order management in the first releases in the year, as opposed to at the end of the year. And now I'll hand it back over to Randall for projects.
Great, thanks, Jen. So for project enhancements, there were just a couple. Most of them were regarding revenue and project plan. So the biggest ones is the project billing and revenue usability. So in your project billing rules now, you have the option to do rev rec on project billing rules. So this is linked now to certain places on the project record, which is going to give you way more insight than you've seen before on project revenue rules and how project rev rec is done. As well as in the project plan, the financial tab, when rev rec summary and project revenue recognition is enabled, will show you, again, a lot of the revenue recognition specific things for your individual projects. This is helpful to those people who are doing milestone-based billing or billing up front, or a certain way to recognize time and materials based on invoicing. So a lot of additional detail in the NetSuite revenue area to truly start getting some good profitability views on your projects. Another really interesting thing is that when you're doing uploading for NetSuite projects, there used to be sort of lists, like list maximums on the CSV imports. Now that has adjusted, so you can now import up to 6,000 projects, including charge and invoice values at a time. So I don't know how many folks on this call have this high value number of projects, high volume number of projects, excuse me. But this is a massive update in terms of, being able to import everything. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was that it talks about turning off and on the notification for rejected time entries in accounting preferences. So this is really just if you don't want NetSuite to pop up a whole bunch of times and say that a time entry was rejected. This is available in accounting preferences now. I am not really sure of a specifically good use case where you'd really want to turn off project rejected time entry notifications, but it's now available through accounting preferences. So again, not very many updates to projects, but a couple of really key ones around the revenue area, which is, again, helpful for truly determining project profitability. So Suite App Distribution, there's a lot of little notes in here, lots of different discussions on APIs and how things are moving between the two accounts. Really, the summary of this is that if you've got a bundle you developed in 2023.1, there's no issues moving it to 2023.2. If you're developing something in your release preview environment, you build a bundle in your release preview environment in 2023.2, there may be some issues moving that into your live environment if your live environment is still in 2023.1. Okay. I don't see this very often. This is not something that most clients have to worry about, mostly because, the release preview is just used for testing, generally a shorter period of time than is probably recommended before the actual upgrade. But again, it's just something nice to call out so that you're not trying to if you're a developer or coder, you're not sitting going over your lines of code, wondering where you have the wrong syntax or something like that. All right, Olivia, next slide. Okay. User interface. So we're going to take a minute here. And again, a lot of this is going to be developer centric. So the couple of things that are not developer centric here is that when you're looking at the saved search list in your menu, there's now a maximum of 100 saved searches that show up if you're doing, reports, save, if you're going to, list save searches, it's got the names of your searches. You can have up to 100 and that drop down. True usability on that, I'm not sure. If you have more than 100 saved searches and you're trying to scroll through them, it's probably better just to go to, reports, save searches, view all saved searches to find the one you're looking for. Just because I know most of us, when we've been navigating in NetSuite and we're trying to hover over those lists, sometimes we move our mouse cursor off and that drop down goes away. But if you like leveraging the scroll down functionality on those menus, you're now going to have 100 saved searches you can view. The other non-developer thing is that NetSuite is now only going to be supporting the 2 most recent versions of Safari and on Mac operating systems. So for those of you using a Mac, just pay attention to this and make sure that you're on the most up-to-date version. So let's get into talking about the biggest piece here, which is the EXTJS library. So the EXTJS library is a development framework. It's mostly used by very large companies as they're developing certain, additional functionality. I don't know personally which specific Oracle applications leverage the EXTJS library. The biggest piece here is to check on all of your updated third-party suite apps, check on any internal developed applications or scripts to make sure that it's not referencing an EXTJS library. This is going to be going away in 24.2. So this is very important to start taking a look at and getting a handle on, because, oh, sorry, 2024.1. My bad. This is important to start getting a handle on, because if scripting has to be rewritten to not reference that library, it could take developers a minute to do so. Okay. This is certainly something that if you really have a question on if this is being used, reach out to us. We can help you with that. It's pretty involved to figure out if you've got dozens of scripts, is a library being referenced by them that's using the EXTJS framework. But to my knowledge, there's not a lot of developers outside of large organizations that leverage this. So again, though, since it is something that's being deprecated that will have an instantaneous impact on scripts, absolutely something to start taking a look at over the next 6 months to make sure that any plans are in place to either backfill or have that replaced by that time. Okay. Let's see what else we've got on here. Olivia, do we have another one? Nope. All right, great. Well, what we're going to do now is we're going to open it up to any questions, and then I think we'll go through, or Olivia, do you want to go through this slide now and then open it up to questions?
Yeah, sure. So we'll give everybody a minute to write any questions they have in the chat or Q&A box. But I did want to let you all know that as a thank you for joining today's webcast, you can leave GSI a review on G2 and automatically get a $25 Amazon gift card by following the link in the chat. So again, thanks for joining us today. And I'll just give everybody a quick minute to put a question in the chat. and then we will get answering those.
Jen, I guess we did a phenomenal job of this. So,
So I do have, okay, so first of all, can this recording be found, sent to us to send to other team members? Yes, absolutely. This session has been recorded, so we can send that to you. And then we'll also be doing a write-up of these new releases as well. So yes, we can do that. The next question I have is, what app can I use on an Android to get two-factor authentication instead of SMS?
So on that one, you've got some options on the Android. The best option, in my opinion, is Google Authenticator. But there's also some that were really well reviewed this past year. So you've got LastPass, let me be clear there, LastPass Authenticator, Duo Mobile, DUO, almost like Duolingo, and then Microsoft Authenticator as well. So, and I know it's strange, if you're on an Apple, you can also actually download Google Authenticator. But the way those apps work is you're really just scanning in your barcode in NetSuite in the environment. And then every time you want to get your two-factor, you pull up your app and you put those numbers in. So very simple, one-time setup on your phone. And if anyone has any questions or has any issues trying to set that up, please reach out. We're here for it.
Next we have, so we use Okta currently. Is this something that will become an issue next year?
So I don't believe that it will be an issue. The main thing to check would be, are you logging into Okta first and it's pushing to NetSuite, or are you logging into NetSuite first and then it's pushing to Okta? Right? That's the main thing to check. If you're using Okta first and it's just pushing you directly into NetSuite, you should not have any issues.
Great. And then when will the release preview be available?
So you all should have it now available to you. And again, just reminding you that in your environment, you should be able to go to your home screen and click on personalize in the top right corner, looking for that new release. But that should be available now for everyone.
Awesome.
Go
Randall,
ahead,
did you have one? Oh, next question. For the account reconciliations, is this something we can chat with you about setting up a test, or if you have any more information on this function?
Yes, that's absolutely something that we can help you look into. Reach out to your lead consultant and just say, hey, can we talk about this? And we can work to either get you a demo or see if we can install it and move forward from there.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that is all we have for questions. So thank you so much, Randall and Jen. I know that was a ton of information, so we appreciate it. This recording will be available to all of you. So thanks again for joining, and we will see you soon.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.